G'day, I'm Jack. Welcome to the STP training video that focuses on teaching the motor skill of pace bowling, which is derived from the sport of cricket. Pace bowling is somewhat similar to a throwing action, however it must conform to several other restrictions. Bowling is classified as a gross, discrete, closed motor skill, and the motor abilities required to perform this skill include multi-limb coordination, speed of arm movement, arm and hand steadiness, aiming, and finger dexterity. Throughout the 5-week training program, I'll be playing the role of the coach or the teacher. And now I'll pass you over to Max, who will be playing the role of the learner in the program, just to tell you a few details about himself. Thank you.
I'm Max, and as Jack said, I'll be playing the role of the learner of the motor skill throughout the 5-week program. I would consider myself in the cognitive stages of learning for the motor skill bowling, as I have not had much prior experience except for watching it on TV and quite limited game time playing cricket with friends. The only skill that would relate to this that I've done in the past would be line-out throwing in rugby, as both are closed skills which require an overarm throw whilst aimed at a target.
Now onto the overview of our 5-week training program. Throughout the first week of the training program was all about familiarising Max with the skill. This was done through an initial session of video breakdown and analysis of bowling, showing some footage of professional bowlers and outlining the key components. In accordance with Gentile's two-stage model for learning, demonstrating the skill is useful in two instances: prior to the person practicing the desired skill and during the practice as frequently as necessary. Also relating to demonstration, McGill 2007 outlined that observers tend to imitate the strategy shown on the initial attempts of performing the skill. These two reasons form the basis of video demonstration prior to the practice. Out onto the field sessions. Each field session began with a comprehensive warm-up. The exercise shown here involves Max jogging through 10 lengths of the pitch. Each length Max would run, he would build up his pace, starting with a slow jog and building his way up to around 90% of his maximal sprint speed. This warm-up is directly related to the skill in regards to the run-up phase, and is therefore an ideal warm-up activity. Post warm-up, a stretching session was done to loosen up the required muscle groups of the skill. This stretching was done systematically, working the way from the calves all the way through to the neck. The stretching was also tailored to Max's specific needs. As Max stated he was particularly tight around the hip and lower back region, more time was spent stretching through in this area. During the initial stages of the program, Max's technique was assessed, and areas that needed work were identified. Verbal instructions were given in order to correct those technique errors. These instructions were given in verbal cues, such as walk the line in order to stay straight in the movement, and yank the chain to assist in keeping the bowling arm high. Cues were given in accordance to a study by Massa in 1993, who found that cued students were able to maintain the skill up to 3 months after being taught. To gauge Max's progress throughout the program, he was required to bowl 48 deliveries per week, and after each delivery was bowled, a measurement was taken to identify how far away from the target he was, and how many targets that he hit each week. Deliveries that were over 1 metre away from the target were noted as being 1 metre away, as this was the maximum distance recorded. Sessions included a focus on specific skill areas. The example shown here is working on the run-up phase of the skill and shows a marker being placed as an identification of where to start the movement. Other sessions included a demonstration of poor technique from the coach. Max was then asked to identify areas of the technique that were poor and what needed to be done to change them. This learning method falls in line with the work of Bandura 1986 in regards to the cognitive mediation theory. The theory states that when a person learns or observes a skill, the brain remembers the specific movement pattern as correct. This memory can then be used to serve as a guide for how the skill should look when it is performed, and can be used as a reference to detect errors and in turn correct the technique. For the final session of the program, Max was asked to bowl under circumstances that simulated a match of cricket, this being a batsman was present at the other end of the pitch. This was able to show if Max was able to adapt to performing the skill under different circumstances than he was used to, which is in line with the autonomous stage of learning in the Fitz and Posner model. Now, on to the results section. As stated previously, Max was required to bowl 48 deliveries per week. Each bowl was recorded as distance away from the target. The graphs displayed, x-axis represents the distance away from the target and the y-axis represents the number of deliveries. Additionally, each week the number of targets hit was recorded and the progression is shown in the final graph. Alright, from a teaching perspective, I found the experience a lot more challenging than what I would have thought. Max had a way that he wanted to perform the skill, and to me it didn't look correct from a technique perspective. But in saying this, his performance improved a lot throughout the program. So yeah, I'm sort of 50-50 on achieving the goals that I set for myself.
Looking back on it, I was quite happy with the results of the training program due to the fact that I went from being able to not even hit the pitch to eventually hitting 1 metre away from the stump, especially in weeks 4 and 5. Although I was disappointed with the lack of wickets I striked, although considering the time frame I was given to practice, I expected that my improvement would not be too excessive anyway. If I was to improve this program, I would possibly decrease the amount of balls that I had to complete, as I believe the quality decreased the longer I bowled due to the lack of focus and disinterest.
Alright, overall from a results perspective, I'm happy with the outcome. Although Max didn't progress as quickly as I would have liked, he certainly improved from the start of the program to the finish of it. And from a technique perspective, I'm sure that he has a greater understanding of what correct technique is supposed to be, but he's just sort of had a little bit of trouble transferring that over into the physical performance of the skill. But yeah, overall I'm very happy with the outcome.
The program I found was a progressive training load that helped me personally to slowly understand the basics of bowling without getting too much information all at once. I really enjoyed how the skill was broken up into 6 movements, as it allowed me to focus all of my attention to one specific skill of the whole motor skill at a time. This really helped accelerate my learning, as I knew what was required of myself for each of the 6 stages. So therefore, when bowling, I could put all these steps together to get much more improved results. I found that prior to this 5-week program, when bowling with friends, say in the park, I could easily mix all of these 6 movements into one, which, looking back on it, generally resulted in a no ball or a sore shoulder and back pain from poor technique. This program not only helped me improve my accuracy and speed of my bowl, but also prevented any back pain or shoulder discomfort. All in all, I found this program to be very helpful and successful.
Okay, throughout the program I had mixed emotions in regards to whether it was a success or not. Like I said earlier, Max failed to display the correct technique that I would have liked by the end of the program, but in saying that, something that I'll take out of it for future implications would be that sort of everybody has a different way of doing things, and maybe they shouldn't be altered. In sport, I think allowing each person to perform a skill the way they feel comfortable can only be a positive. So that's something that I've taken out of it.
Of the assessment, I personally have found that in all motor skills, the best way to teach a new learner is by breaking down the skill to make it as basic as possible, so that the learner can be familiar as possible with each skill. Otherwise, I found it's quite easy to get lost or confused with the complete action of the motor skill. As mentioned prior, this can be seen through the 6-stage breakdown of each skill in bowling. Also, it is important to establish how the learner of the new motor skill learns in the most effective way, which is completely individual specific to all learners.